Highways were never meant to be frightening. They were designed to connect us, to help us move faster, farther, safer. But somewhere along the endless asphalt, something changed. When the world goes quiet, when the clocks hit those late-night hours where even gas stations look abandoned, highways become something else entirely. They become lonely, too lonely. And loneliness has a strange way of attracting the things we're not supposed to see. If you've ever driven long distance at night, you already know the feeling. That sinking moment when your headlights barely cut through the darkness. That moment when the empty road makes you feel like the last person alive. The radio turns into background noise. Time slows down, and suddenly every shadow on the shoulder looks like it's watching. But what if I told you that sometimes they are? Tonight, you're about to hear 4 terrifying true highway stories from regular people, drivers who thought they were just going from one place to another, people who believed the road was safe, predictable, familiar, until the moment it wasn't, until something stepped out of the darkness, until a stranger made the wrong move, until survival became the only goal. These aren't urban legends. These aren't rumors. These are real accounts from travelers who escaped by seconds, or inches. Stories of deranged strangers hiding in plain sight. Stories of vehicles that followed too closely. Stories of gas stations that weren't as empty as they seemed. Stories of people who never should have crossed paths, yet somehow did. And every single one of them happened on a highway you could drive tomorrow. So settle in. Keep your eyes on the screen, because what you're about to hear might change the way you see nighttime roads forever. And the next time you're driving with nothing but darkness on both sides, you might think twice before slowing down, or stopping, or trusting the wrong person. Let's begin with story 1. The story of a harmless midnight snack run that turned into one of the most horrifying highway pursuits imaginable. It was supposed to be a quick midnight snack run, nothing more. I wasn't tired, I wasn't scared, and I definitely wasn't expecting anything unusual. It was just one of those long nights where my brain refused to shut off, and the craving for a hot sandwich hit me hard enough to get me out of the house at 2 a.m. The highway in my town is the type of road people only use out of necessity. No billboards, no bright signs, no late-night traffic. Just miles of dark nothingness stretching in every direction. I'd driven it so many times that the silence didn't bother me anymore. But that night, the silence felt heavier, like something was waiting far out in the dark for me to notice it. I brushed off the feeling and kept going. The Quick Check store was the only place open 24/7, so I headed there like usual, humming to my music, trying to pretend the night didn't feel wrong. When I pulled into the parking lot, everything looked normal. 2 empty cars, flickering fluorescent lights, a bored cashier leaning on the counter. I ordered my sandwich, then wandered the aisles to kill time, pacing because the caffeine had made my heart jittery. That's when I first saw him. A man sat on the cold tile floor at the back of the store, cross-legged, perfectly still, facing one of the refrigerated drink coolers like he was studying it. He wore a brown coat and faded jeans. Nothing unusual in that, but the way he was sitting, the way his spine bent unnaturally forward, the way his head tilted slightly, as if he were listening to the refrigerator hum, froze me. At first, I thought he was homeless, or asleep, or maybe even hurt, but then he moved. Not slowly, not gradually. He jerked, like someone pulled invisible strings tied to his neck. His head snapped in my direction so fast that my breath caught. And his eyes, they were wide open. Too wide. The kind of wide that didn't look human. His pupils didn't even seem to focus. They just stared through me, like I wasn't a person, just an object he needed to examine. His lip vibrated, twitching rapidly like he was shivering. Except the store was warm, and he was wearing a jacket. I panicked and darted behind another aisle, pretending to look at chips. I didn't want him thinking I was staring, but curiosity mixed with dread, and my brain kept whispering, "Look again. Make sure he's real." So I walked around the aisle acting normal. I turned the corner just enough to get a better look at him, and that's when he moved again. This time, his entire upper body twisted sharply, snapping toward me like a puppet yanked by its strings. His stare locked onto me, empty, dead, unblinking. I froze. For a moment, neither of us moved. The store hummed quietly around us, but it felt like the entire world had gone still, like time was holding its breath. Then I broke the stare. I left the aisle and stood by the counter, pretending to wait for my food. But every time I glanced toward the back, I couldn't see him anymore. He wasn't sitting where he'd been seconds ago. I kept scanning the aisles, expecting him to step out somewhere. But he didn't. The store felt too quiet, too empty, too strange. When my sandwich was finally ready, I practically snatched the bag and rushed toward the door. The moment I stepped outside, I felt a weird relief. The night air was cold, but familiar, real, safe, or so I thought. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I caught movement in my peripheral vision. A figure sprinting full speed across the parking lot. I turned my head in disbelief. It was him. The brown coat, the jerky movements, the same unnatural posture. He was running toward the far end of the lot, toward a pickup truck. Before I could process anything, he yanked open the driver's door of the truck, climbed in, and slammed it shut. My blood went cold. I didn't know what he wanted. I didn't want to know. I just stepped harder on the gas and merged back onto the highway. The store lights disappeared behind me. Darkness swallowed everything. I tried to convince myself it was just a coincidence. Maybe he lived nearby. Maybe he wasn't following me. Maybe it was all just headlights. Far back at first. Then closer. Too close. My stomach flipped. No one drove this highway at 2:30 a.m. Not at this speed. Not without reason. I pressed the gas. The headlights sped up. I changed lanes. The headlights followed. A horn blared. Long, aggressive. Like a warning. Or a threat. My brain went numb. My chest tightened. My fingers squeezed the steering wheel so hard they hurt. Then I saw it through my mirror. The brown coat behind the wheel. His head tilted forward in that same unnatural angle. His eyes fixed on me like I was prey trying to outrun a predator. He flashed his high beams. Once, twice, 3 times. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should pull over or keep driving or call someone. Anything. But the moment I eased off the gas, his truck lunged forward and slammed into my bumper. Metal screamed. My car jolted violently. My heart almost exploded out of my chest. He rammed me. On purpose. I slammed my foot back on the gas and shot forward. The speedometer climbed, 80 mph, 90, 100. But the truck stayed glued to me, inches from my back bumper, swerving aggressively like he was trying to flip me. I didn't know how far we were from town. I didn't know if I could outrun him. All I knew was that if he hit me again at that speed, I might not survive. So I did the only thing I could think of. At the moment he swerved left to ram my car again, I slammed the brakes and jerked my wheel hard to the right. The truck shot past me like a bullet. Time slowed. The tail lights fishtailed violently. The entire truck swerved left, then right, then spun out completely, sliding sideways off the road and crashing into a field with a deafening crunch. I didn't wait to see if he climbed out. I didn't stop. I didn't even breathe. I just drove. By the time I reached my house, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone to call the police. I gave them everything I remembered. The truck. The weird man in the brown coat. The way he followed me across miles of empty highway. The officer said they'd investigate and check the store cameras. That was a week ago. I haven't heard anything since. Every night, I park my car in the driveway and stare at the road, wondering if he survived, wondering if he's angry, wondering if he remembers my face the same way I remember his dead, twitching stare. And every night I think about that brown coat, because somewhere out there on a dark highway, he might still be wearing it. I've driven thousands of miles for work, but no stretch of road has ever unnerved me like that one night in the New Mexico desert. Endless flat land. No towns. No lights. Just a single, narrow highway cutting through the darkness like a thread. If your car broke down there, you were basically stranded between nothing and nowhere. It was around 1 a.m., and I was already tired. I'd been on the road since sunset, hauling refurbished electronics to a rural drop-off point across the state. My eyes were burning, my back was stiff, and I was counting the minutes until I could finally clock out. Then I saw her. A red hatchback was parked crookedly on the gravel shoulder. Hazard lights blinking weakly in the dark. A young woman stood beside it, waving her phone in the air like she was trying to catch a signal. Her posture looked desperate, almost frantic. Normally, I would have kept driving. Everyone who works highway routes knows the rule. Never stop for anything suspicious at night. But something about her expression made my foot ease up on the gas. She didn't look dangerous, just scared. And the nearest town was at least 30 minutes away. I imagined my sister stranded like that, alone, helpless, in the middle of nowhere. Just help her. Quick. Then leave. I muttered to myself. I pulled over a few feet ahead. Before I could even roll the window all the way down, she hurried over and grabbed the passenger door handle. It was locked, thank God. Her voice shook as she said, "Please, I need a ride to the nearest gas station. My car just died. I can't reach anyone." Something felt off immediately. Her speech wasn't normal. Not scared normal. Not crying normal. It was jittery, slurred. Her eyes darted around rapidly, like she was scanning the darkness behind her car. Still, I cracked the window and asked basic questions. What happened? Did the engine sputter? Did you hit something? Every question made her react weirdly. She ignored half of them, redirected the others, kept repeating, "Just drive. Please. Can we go now?" I hesitated. Something inside me whispered, "This isn't right." But against my better judgment, thinking I had a weapon in my truck and could defend myself, I clicked the door open. She climbed in fast. Too fast. Didn't buckle her seatbelt. Didn't adjust her clothes. Didn't even look at me. She just stared straight ahead, breathing shallowly like she'd been running. I threw the truck into drive and glanced at her car one last time. That was when my blood froze. A man stepped out from behind the hatchback. He'd been hiding the entire time. He wasn't waving a phone. He wasn't pretending to fix anything. He'd been crouched behind the vehicle, waiting. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. "What the hell?" I whispered. Before I could react further, another figure walked into the road about 50 feet in front of my truck. A lanky silhouette holding something long. Maybe a pipe. Maybe a bat. He didn't move toward us, he just stood there, blocking the lane. My passenger, who had been almost lifeless till now, whipped around in her seat. The moment she saw the man behind the car, her breathing changed. Not scared, agitated, like she knew him. I slammed on the gas without thinking. The truck lurched forward so violently she smacked into the seat. "What are you doing?" she shouted. But I'd already seen the setup. One man behind us, one man ahead, her in the truck with me. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't stopping. The man in front of us stepped closer, lifting the weapon in his hand. But I floored it. He dove aside at the last second as we blasted past him. The woman screamed at me to slow down, but I didn't. Then she made a move. She reached into her purse. Deep, fast, frantic, like she was grabbing something she'd been waiting to use. My heart shot straight into my throat. I pulled my gun before she could finish unzipping the bag. "Freeze!" I yelled. She did. Her whole body locked. Her eyes widened, not with fear, but anger. Pure frustration. Like her plan had just fallen apart. "What were you reaching for?" I demanded. She didn't answer. She just stared at the dashboard, breathing heavily through her nose. "Sit back," I ordered. She did. For the next 30 minutes, longest of my life, we drove in tense silence toward the nearest gas station in Artesia. Every mile felt like I was carrying a bomb in my passenger seat. When we finally saw the lights of the station, I sped into the lot and parked directly under the brightest lamp. 2 semis were parked nearby. Drivers inside. Witnesses. Good. "Get out," I said. "No," she whispered. That one word was enough to make my skin crawl. I didn't give her a choice. I popped her door open from my side and practically shoved her out. She stumbled to the pavement, yelling something slurred and unhinged. One of the truckers looked over, confused. I didn't wait, didn't explain, didn't check on her. I peeled out of that gas station like my life depended on it, because it probably did. I drove 2 blocks away, parked, and checked the passenger seat. My heart hammered when I saw what had slipped between the cushions. A burner phone battery, and a sealed bundle of zip ties. Zip ties. I didn't need to imagine what those were for. I threw everything into a trash can and got back on the road, shaking, sweating, replaying the entire encounter over and over. I never called the police. Not because I didn't want justice, because I didn't want to answer questions about why I had a gun or why I shoved a woman out of my vehicle. But I know one thing for certain. I didn't save her that night. I saved myself. And somewhere out there on some highway, I'm terrified she and her friends are still running the same trap, waiting for someone else to stop. I used to think the scariest part of a cross-country road trip was falling asleep at the wheel. I was wrong. The real danger isn't the road. It's the places you stop when you think you're safe. 3 years ago, my husband and I were driving from Utah to Georgia. It was a long, exhausting trip, but we were excited to visit places we'd never seen before. The highway we took through western Kansas looked harmless enough during the day. Miles of farmland, big open skies, and nothing else. But at night, it becomes a completely different world. We'd been driving since early morning, and by 10 p.m., I was dead asleep in the passenger seat. I remember dreaming about something peaceful, warm sunlight, soft grass, then suddenly waking up to the feeling of the car slowing down. My husband pulled into a tiny, isolated gas station glowing under a single flickering light. He said he was going to fill the tank and grab snacks. I decided to use the bathroom. I left my phone and purse in the car. That was my first mistake. The moment I stepped into the gas station, I felt it. The air inside was off, thick, quiet, almost stale. The cashier didn't even look at me. He just stared at his computer like he didn't want to acknowledge I existed. The women's bathroom was down a narrow side hallway. The second I opened the door, I nearly collided with someone. A woman stepped out of a stall, holding a tied-up plastic grocery bag. She didn't say sorry, didn't give a polite smile. She just stared at me. Her hair was messy, gray, and looked like it hadn't been washed in weeks. Her flip-flops made a soft slap on the tile. But the strangest thing was her coat. A purple and green winter coat. It was Kansas in July. Hot, humid. No sane person wore a winter coat in that weather. I gave her a quick nod and tried to pass. But she didn't move. She watched me, unblinking, like she was waiting for me to do something specific. I squeezed past her and walked toward the sinks, but instead of leaving, she followed me. She stood beside the sinks without washing her hands, without fixing her hair, without doing anything. She just stared at her reflection, arms hanging loosely at her sides. Something inside me screamed, "Get away from her." I hurried into a stall and locked it. My breathing was louder than I wanted it to be. I sat there wishing I had brought my phone, or at least told my husband I was going inside. A moment later, the woman's flip-flops slapped across the floor. The sound grew closer, then stopped, right outside my stall. I clamped a hand over my mouth and forced myself to stay absolutely silent. She didn't breathe normally. It came in slow, raspy, uneven pulls, like she was standing there listening for something, listening for me. After what felt like a full minute, I heard the bathroom door open, then slam shut. Her footsteps faded. I waited another 30 seconds. Then I heard it, breathing. She hadn't left. She had faked leaving. She was standing in the corner by the door, hidden from my view, waiting. My heart hammered against my ribs. I stayed completely still, barely daring to inhale. Time crawled. I don't know how long she stood there, 1 minute, 2 minutes, maybe longer. Then the door opened again, closed again, footsteps going out. Silence. I didn't buy it. I waited longer this time. My legs were shaking from holding still. My fingers dug into the side of the metal stall. Then, a gasp, a long, sharp inhale, like someone had been holding their breath for minutes, followed by the door opening and closing again. That was the moment I realized she was playing some twisted game with me. She wanted me to come out. She wanted me to think she was gone so she could catch me off guard. I didn't know if she was mentally unstable, high, or something worse. I didn't care. I just needed to get out alive. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I forced myself to unlock the stall and step out. The bathroom was empty. My pulse pounded in my ears as I washed my hands in 3 seconds flat and practically ran out the door. But the nightmare wasn't over. When I stepped back into the store, I scanned the aisles. No sign of the woman. The cashier still didn't look up. A large man was paying for fuel at the counter. I waited behind a snack rack until he finished and left. Then I walked outside behind him so I wouldn't be alone. The moment I stepped into the warm night air, I saw her. She was standing near the edge of the building, partially hidden by the shadows. Her coat looked even bulkier under the harsh outdoor lights. She was staring at me, not blinking, not moving. In her hand was something small, metallic, sharp-looking. I couldn't tell what it was, but the way she held it, low, angled, ready, made my stomach twist. She wasn't scared of me. She wasn't lost. She was waiting. The man who'd checked out before me got into his truck. The woman noticed him, glanced over, and quickly turned, walking around the side of the building toward the dark rear alley. I sprinted to our car, swung the door open, and practically threw myself inside. My husband looked up, confused. "You okay? What took so?" "Drive," I whispered. "Just drive." He didn't ask questions. He just hit the gas. As we pulled onto the highway, I made the mistake of looking back. She was standing at the corner of the building, watching us, not moving, not blinking, just watching. That night changed something in me. I never use remote gas station bathrooms anymore. Not during the day, and definitely not after dark. Because I know the truth now. You don't need monsters or ghosts to terrify you. Sometimes all it takes is one person, one stranger, one wrong stop, and you could disappear into the darkness of a lonely highway without a sound. There's something uniquely terrifying about a rest area at night. They're meant to be safe. Bright lights, clean bathrooms, vending machines humming softly in the corner. But when the sun goes down and the parking lot empties out, those places feel less like a temporary stop and more like a trap waiting to close on someone unlucky enough to walk into it. In 2020, I was 24 and working a pretty laid-back logistics job, driving automotive parts across Iowa and Illinois. For the most part, I enjoyed it. Quiet roads, decent pay, no boss breathing down my neck. But winter nights, those were brutal. This night was worse than most. Mid-January, freezing. The kind of cold that bit through your gloves and made your breath look like smoke. I was driving east on I-80, halfway between Des Moines and Davenport, basically the middle of nowhere. Around 10:30, I started nodding off. The headlights blurred. I jerked awake more than once. I knew I needed a break. When I spotted a blue sign reading "Rest Area 1 mile," I pulled off without hesitating. The place was completely deserted. No cars. No families stretching their legs. No late-night truckers. Just a small brick building and a dozen empty parking spaces lit by dim orange streetlights. Only one vehicle sat at the far end. An old white cargo van with no windows. Unmarked, unmoving, and completely dark. I parked under the brightest light, locked the truck, and headed inside. The men's room smelled faintly of bleach and damp concrete. The heater rattled loudly, echoing off the tile. I splashed cold water on my face, hoping it would wake me up. Then I heard something. The bathroom door creaking. Soft. Slow. I turned around, but nobody was there. I told myself it was just the wind and finished up quickly. But the moment I stepped outside, I knew something was wrong. The white van's headlights were on. No engine running. No sound. Just the lights, glowing, pointing directly at the building. I hadn't heard anyone turn them on. I would have heard the click, the creak, something. My instincts screamed, "Get in the truck. Now." I jumped inside, locked the doors, and pulled out of the parking spot. As I headed toward the exit, the van's headlights flicked off again. Darkness. 5 minutes back on the interstate, I checked my mirror, and my stomach dropped. Headlights. Coming fast. At first, I thought it was a random driver. But as the vehicle got closer, The shape became clear. It was the same white van. I tried to stay calm. Maybe they were just passing by. Maybe it was nothing. But then the van pulled closer. Closer. Until it was only inches from my bumper. Then it flashed its high beams, blinding me. My hands tightened on the wheel. My throat went dry. Okay. Okay. Maybe they're trying to tell me something, I muttered. I switched lanes. The van switched lanes with me. I sped up. So did the van. I slowed down. The van slowed down too. My heart hammered. I was wide awake now. Shaking, sweating, gripping the wheel like it was the only thing keeping me alive. The van drifted into the lane beside me and matched my speed. The passenger window rolled down halfway. The driver leaned forward, but I couldn't see his face. Just a shadow, a baseball cap, and the glint of something metallic on the dashboard. He gestured at my truck bed, waving for me to roll my window down. But the bed was empty, completely empty. He was lying, trying to trick me. I stared ahead, refusing to look at him again. That seemed to anger him. He honked long, loud, and then swerved toward my lane, forcing me dangerously close to the shoulder. I floored it. He cut in front of me, slammed on his brakes for half a second, then veered onto the shoulder and stopped. I zipped past him, heart pounding out of my chest. But within seconds, his headlights appeared again. Behind me, closer than before. I needed help. I needed people. I needed a place where I wouldn't be alone. A sign flashed past. Truck stop, 5 miles. I took the exit as fast as I could. The moment I entered the bright parking lot, relief washed over me. Semis lined the fueling area. Lights glowed from the diner next door. People. Safety. I parked right under a floodlight and got out of the truck, forcing my legs to stop shaking. The white van didn't enter immediately. It lingered at the edge of the lot like a predator watching prey, then slowly rolled forward. That was when the diner door swung open. A middle-aged woman behind the counter looked at me with concern. "You okay?" she asked. "Someone's been following me," I choked out. "For miles." A huge trucker overheard. Gray beard, flannel shirt, built like a wall. He stood up without a word and followed me outside. The white van stayed idling at the far edge of the lot, engine rumbling. The trucker stared at it, shoulders squared. After a moment he said, "Stay behind me. Don't move." He walked straight toward the van, fearless. I held my breath. I couldn't hear what he said. But whatever it was, it made the van react fast. The engine roared. The tires spun. The van backed up, swung around violently, and sped out of the lot, racing back toward the interstate without stopping. The trucker came back, shaking his head. "There were 2 of them," he said, "just sitting there, both wearing hoodies. Neither said a damn word." My skin crawled. I stayed in the diner for nearly an hour, nursing a cheap coffee with trembling hands. When I finally went back outside to finish my route, I checked my tailgate. 2 long, greasy handprints smeared across the metal, as if someone had tried to pull it open. I quit the job a few months later. And even now, years later, I refuse to stop at deserted rest areas, especially if there's a white van parked anywhere nearby. Because I know one thing: if I had opened my window that night, or slowed down when they wanted me to, or stopped when they blocked the lane, I would not be here telling this story. Highways are supposed to be simple. You drive, you reach your destination, you go home. But the stories you just heard prove something most people never think about. The scariest part of the road isn't the dark. It's the people hiding inside it. Because every story tonight came from someone ordinary. Someone who thought they were just taking a normal trip. Someone who believed the highway was empty, safe, predictable. But a single wrong stop, a single strange encounter, a single person with the wrong intentions can turn an empty highway into the most dangerous place in the world. The man in the brown coat? He wasn't a ghost. He wasn't a legend. He was a real person. Someone who existed, who chased, hunted, and tried to kill a stranger for reasons no one will ever understand. The woman on the roadside? She could have fooled anyone. If that driver hadn't seen the man hiding behind her car, we would be telling a very different story right now. The bathroom stalker? She didn't need weapons or threats. She used silence, presence, psychological terror, the kind of danger that creeps up on you when you're most vulnerable. And the white van, that's the story that haunts me the most. Because those people were organized, calculated. They didn't chase just for fun. They chased with a purpose. And somewhere out there, they're probably still driving the same roads. These aren't supernatural stories. These aren't monsters in the dark. These are humans. And humans are unpredictable, desperate, and sometimes far more terrifying than anything paranormal. So the next time you're on a late-night road trip, if you see a random person on the shoulder, if you're the only car at a rest area, if someone won't stop tailgating you in the dark, if a gas station bathroom feels off, listen to your instincts. People have survived because of them, and people have disappeared because they ignored them. If you enjoyed these real highway horror stories, make sure to like the video, subscribe for more chilling true events, and let me know in the comments.